We were given a mission. It was top secret. We are seeing tracer rounds. It was like 4th of July. He opens the door as our weapon goes into the other side of the building. And he just went, "Oh my God, Mandy, brake right." He saw the flash of a missile being launched at us. I chill my engines. The flares get put out. We were running out of fuel. It's me that drops the weapon in the front seat. But on his say, you're a pilot, you're not bloodthirsty. I was never fearful of being shot down, but I was fearful of letting my team down. We felt horrific that we dropped a weapon not on the target, and it was a huge mistake. And I just remember thinking, you're a failure. When you're only one of 5 women that have flown the Tornado, it cost $3.7 million to train me, and when you light those burners, you get a kick. Oh my gosh, this is what I want to be part of. But the small problem is that women weren't allowed to be pilots in the Air Force. And they found out the majority of women taking the test were failing them. They said, we're taking you on as a test case to find out how far you'll get before you fail. Fully booked as a speaker, hundreds of thousands of school children engaged, all over the world in all 5 continents.
Welcome to the Debrief, where this week I've got a very special guest. She was a former RAF pilot, not just a pilot, fighter planes. Wow! I can't wait for this. Mandy, welcome to the show.
Oh, lovely to be here. Thanks, Phil.
Superb. Listen, what I'm going to do with you, we're going to delve into your history. I want to find out all about little Mandy, and then I want to talk about all the cool stuff that you did after that, because it is cool stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Fighter pilot. I'm like, yes.
Were you on the ground? I was in the air.
Yeah, that's right. Right, so, small Mandy, where are you from?
Originally from Manchester,
Okay.
So I grew up in Sale, which is sort of the suburbs of Manchester.
Accent has done a
Disappeared.
runner, isn't it? It's
yeah,
gone, isn't
absolutely.
it?
Well, I left when I was 18,
Oh,
and
okay.
also my mum wasn't from Manchester, so you sort of tend to just pick up the accent from your house, don't you?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one. But no, I left when I was 18, and my accents become completely
childhood?
neutral.
Happy childhood?
Yeah, absolutely. Very happy childhood. So my mum and dad divorced actually when I was about 2, which was quite unusual in those days. So I think I was the only person in my school who had divorced parents. But you know what? It didn't bother us. I had my sister and myself, Sarah.
So you stayed with your mum?
Stayed with my mum, and really happy. The Three Musketeers. Saw my dad every weekend.
Okay.
Very happy on that side as well.
So it was an amicable type split, wasn't a nasty one, all that sort of stuff? Or...
I wouldn't necessarily go that far, but they didn't let that come down to us.
Okay, so there was no sort of like, you're not seeing your dad, all that sort of
No,
stuff?
not at all. And
fine.
I got huge respect for both my parents for the fact that they didn't let, any of their issues become our issues. And I think consequently we had a great relationship with my dad. Sadly, he passed away last year.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, which was quite a shock, really. But it sort of has brought myself closer as well to my younger sister, who's my half sister. So
Okay.
she's 10 years younger than me as well. But yeah, I'm very lucky.
What
very
were you like
stable.
at school?
I was quite a keen bean. I was very, very sporty. So I was literally sort of captain of every sports team going.
Were you clever?
I was quite clever, and I worked quite hard, I would say. I didn't work as hard as I perhaps could have done, but then I had a bit of a kick up the arse, basically, when my sister was doing her A-levels, and I just felt so sad that she was working so hard, and I was doing my GCSEs at the time. And so in sympathy, I just started revising at the same time, so consequently came out with some unbelievable grades, which were probably way, way better than I would have ever got had I not basically started working when she did. So
Okay, so I believe it was your granddad was a pilot.
yeah, so he was a pilot during the Second World
And
War.
did you see lots of your granddad when you was a kid?
Yeah, I
you?
did. So we had a very close relationship to my granny and my grandpa, and we
Well,
used
that
to
is
go
a cool
over.
thing, isn't it? If your
Yeah.
granddad turns around and says, I'm a pilot, did he give you some bits, did he? Did he give you some
Well,
stories?
yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. Over the table, he'd be like, "That was an
Oh,
amazing."
they don't talk about it. They don't talk. Yeah, really.
Well, his wasn't so much the war bits, but he would talk about training. So he was over in South Africa doing a lot of training, and he was flying things like Oxford and Harvard. And I just remember a story he said and it sits really closely in my mind actually, because he took off and he decided that he would see how long he could fly inverted for. But unfortunately, this aircraft he was flying didn't have any inverted capability. So all the oil was lost completely out the engine, and the engine seized. So he then had to do a crash landing in the middle of the desert, but it was these huge big anthills everywhere, and he said they're literally the size of small mountains.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it?
Massive. And he landed around these things, and then he radioed through and said, just had a small problem, just had to do a sort of emergency landing. And then they flew another aeroplane in to sort him out with an engineer on board, and the guy opens the canopy, the cowling of the engine. He was just like, yeah, so you've been flying inverted, sir? My grandpa was like, absolutely not. No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Me inverted?
Me inverted. Filled it with oil and took off again, and they took off back through the anthills and exactly.
That is crazy, isn't it? Because you talk crash landings, you expect carnage, don't you? He's like, I just put it down there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was it.
It was really funny. And I just remember that one, and just this huge sense of pride, actually. But he'd had this huge ambition to be a pilot. And when the war started, he was actually too old. So I think you were only allowed to be up to 23. And he was actually about 31.
Wow.
And they kept saying, every report said, Cuttle is a very mature young man. But he just lied about his age on the application form.
So many people did that during that war for whatever reason, either to up it or down it. Do you know what I mean?
Amazing.
But people wanted to do what they wanted to do, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's massively admirable to me.
Yeah, but it was quite funny. So he ended up being sort of the leader constantly in every course he was on because he was the mature one, which I just think, I'm not sure quite how 8 years old you managed to get away with that one. But there we go.
So rack of medals on him and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, lots and lots of medals, which he actually gave me on my 21st birthday. He framed those and gave me those as his gift to me, which was really lovely. And not just growing up hearing his stories, but just this sort of role model. He was a very quiet man, very dignified man. I think those just sort of drip fed, really, because the next generation down, my mum was a teacher, my dad ran his own carpet business.
Yeah.
And so, just having those sort of role models sort of
you know what
one
I'm saying?
removed.
It's funny you say the fig role model because, I've done a little bit with the Army Cadets and all that sort of stuff, and I know you've done some stuff with the Air Cadets.
Absolutely.
Role models are so important.
Yeah.
So important to people. They really are.
I hadn't really grasped that, I don't think. We'll talk about this later, I'm sure, Phil, but when I was in the Air Force, like you would have been when you were serving as well, head is down, no media, you just get on with your job.
Yeah.
And when I left in 2012... I started to do some work with a charity called Inspiring the Future, and they produced all these statistics of, surveys that were done. And one of these surveys really resonated with me. It said 66% of girls will only go into a career where they have met someone or are one removed from it.
Yeah.
And I thought, my gosh, 2/3 of the population would therefore not assume that they could become a pilot because they can't see anyone doing it.
It's the same with Special Forces soldiers.
Some
of these inner city kids and that, they don't even know what you are. They're
of course.
What's that then?
And it's this eye-opening moment, and there were so many different bits in there of what young girls were doing still in their careers, just in 2012. So we're only talking, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And it really gave me the kick up my arse that I needed to say, actually, I need to do something a bit different.
Yeah. So when you were in school,
yeah,
obviously your inspiration to become a pilot comes from your granddad. That goes without saying. Service? Did you fancy going to the service? Were you a cadet or anything like that?
So and I remember this clearly. This is just a lovely moment. I was absolutely obsessed with Tom Selleck. So massive tash, Magnum PI. Used to be on every Tuesday night, and these are the days before videos or catch up.
Yeah.
And I was watching him, and it was on a Tuesday night. I remember clearly, and my mum was sitting next to me on the settee, and she was reading the Manchester Evening News, and she said, "Oh, I see that the Air Cadets." The Air Training Corps is opening its doors to girls for the very first time next week. And she said, "Oh my gosh, Mandy, that's right up your street. Why don't you join?" And I remember thinking, I said to her, "What night's it on?" She said, "Tuesdays." I was like, "No, I'm not missing Tom Selleck." And that was it. In my mind, I was not missing Magnum. And she said, "But they do canoeing and you like canoeing." I thought, "Oh, I do like canoeing." I'd been in the guides and brownies and guides and all that sort of thing. And and I was really adventurous. And she said, "Mandy, this is really up your street." And I said, "Oh, I'm still not sure." And then she went, "You go to an all-girls school. It's your only opportunity to meet some boys." And I thought, right, brilliant, I'll join.
You're in.
So that was it. Joined. Great sales technique from Mum for a 13-year-old girl. So I joined on the first night that the Air Cadets opened their doors to girls.
Wow. That's groundbreaking in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, it was brilliant. There was about 8 girls that joined on that same night, and we did everything from night exercises. I was always a sort of, we would call it a tomboy in those days, wouldn't we? I was always in tracksuits. I was always, loving climbing trees, getting dirty, fine. So a night exercise to me was like heaven. You know, stick cam cream on, stick camouflage kit on, and be crawl through the mud. You know, I was like, oh
in
my
your element.
God.
Yeah. Best day ever.
It really was. And that introduced me to flying. So I had my first...
So did you do some flying there?
Yeah, I did actually. It was in the time when... I mean, I only had two flights when I was in the Air Cadets, but those were enough. And I flew in a Chipmunk for the first time at RAF Wood Vale near Liverpool. And I remember saying to the pilot, do you get paid for this? And he said, yes, it's my job. And I was like, oh my gosh, this revelation that you could actually get paid to do something that you love. And I thought, oh my God, that's what I want to do.
That's actually one of my first bits of advice to young people. Find something you enjoy doing. And then you're never ever going to go to work, are you?
Exactly that. And I think so many people, I was really surprised the other day I was talking to, actually, with my sister-in-law, and she said, Mandy, most people don't enjoy work. They just go to work. And I thought, I can't even imagine that. Every single job I've ever done, I've done it and I love it.
Yeah, you've enjoyed.
I've enjoyed it. And I think, okay, I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
But we do make our own luck as well, to some degree.
Of course. I mean, you were the one who put the effort in at school. You were the one that, went to cadets. You're the one that... Talk about how you first approached and got into the military, into the Air Force.
So I'll be really honest. Cadets was a mixed bag for me as we then progressed through it, because there were a couple of individuals who were holding quite senior positions, sort of like the cadet warrant officers, cadet flight sergeants. And they were, to give, let's just say, rather jumped up individuals.
Yeah, I get that. I totally understand.
They weren't very pleasant. And I remember thinking as a 14-year-old girl, if this is what the military's like, I'm not really that keen, but I love the flying.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking about leaving because I was doing the Rangers at the time, and I was really enjoying that as well. And I was doing my Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme, and I was starting to do my A levels. And I said to the boss, the CEO, I'm going to leave, and he said, "We'll promote you. Stay." I was like, "Okay." So they promoted me, and I was sort of sergeant. And they said, "Why don't you apply for this flying scholarship?" And I said, okay, well, what's it involve? And they said, well, you have to go down to Biggin Hill and you'll do all the testing and you can get 30 hours of free flying. And I was like, right, I'm in. So I went down to Biggin Hill and went through all of the testing, and I passed all of the aptitude tests at the level that you needed for the flying scholarship. But I did hit one stumbling block. They told me I had an obesity problem. And it was fascinating because I was 6 foot tall and I was doing county sport. I was so fit and I was 12.5 stone. And they said to me, you should be 9.5 stone. And basically, I found out afterwards that their height charts only went up to 5'8" for women, and they didn't add anything for being 6 foot tall.
Oh, so they didn't know. So they just
went,
guessing.
you should just be like 9.5 stone.
That is proper random, isn't it?
So
he must have panicked. I mean, that could have caused your sorts of problems. You must have panicked when you.
Well, he did. I mean, I've got a wing commander diaper. That was his name, and I'll never forget him. And he literally said to me, "How are you going to remedy your obesity problem?" And this is to a 17-year-old, and I wasn't fat at all.
No.
And I just thought, oh my goodness. So I went on the world's biggest diet. I mean, I was doing my A-levels at the time, and I'd go to the gym before school. I'd do my A-levels and all my school sport. Then I would go to the gym after school, and all I would eat was broccoli and chicken. Yeah. And I lost 3 stone in weight over from the November through to the April, and finally got down to the 9.5 stone. And got my flying scholarship.
You never piled in.
I know. I mean, I went to my own doctor to get weighed in, and she said, "Oh my goodness, what's happened to you?" She was, I think, slightly worried I was going through an eating disorder.
Yeah.
And I told her what had happened. She was like, "This is absolutely ridiculous. Your actual BMI weight should be about 12.5 stone." I was like, okay.
Get on the truck, off the truck.
So I ate a lot of cakes and some cream eggs, and I was very happy with that. And it actually gave me a slightly upset tummy, and I lost another 1/4 stone. I was like, damn, why didn't I do that earlier? But what I think that whole thing, though, showed me, to be honest, at a really early age at 17, that's how determined I was. Yeah. You tell me I need to lose 3 stone in weight, even though I disagree with it, and I did it.
Yeah, that's an accomplishment for anybody, any age. You know what I mean?
It was, especially when you're not fat, you know, and you're not carrying excess weight. So anyway, I then got the flying scholarship, went to Blackpool, and I then used the money saved up from my paper round money to pay for the additional 10 hours, which gave me my private pilot's licence, and I did it all in 1 month. which was incredible for, continuity of flying. It really helps.
I
to get,
bet, yeah. I mean, that's a lot of flying to fit into a month, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And they paid...
And they might have, presumably, to get your PPL, there's a bit of paperwork to be done as well. So it's not all...
Yeah, and also ground school
stick,
exams. You've got to do all your ground school exams as well. So we're being sort of taught all the ground school stuff in the morning, and then we would fly in the afternoon or whatever it was with the weather. And yeah, I got my private pilot's license, and then I went off to university, and I was at Birmingham University, joined the University Air Squadron there. Now, that was a completely different kettle of fish to the Air Cadets for me, because...
Well, there'd be drink involved for a start, I'd
there
imagine.
might have been a little bit of imbibing, let's just say, and it was very cheap, and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
That's what got me onto pints, and but it was brilliant, because I gained 160 hours of flying in over 3 years.
Wow.
I mean,
and that's obviously included within... all paid for. So you're not putting your hand in your pocket. That's
absolutely
that's
not.
coming your way.
I mean, I joined that thinking, well, I've got this private pilot's license, now I need to keep it going. I'm not sure, I'm not 100% I'm going to join the Air Force at this moment, but I definitely want to fly.
Were you thinking commercial? Were you thinking sort of
I wasn't really sure, I just love flying.
Yeah.
But the second I got into the University Air Squadron, that basically sold the Air Force to me, because they're showing you a different life. I'll be honest, they're showing you the life of an officer.
Yeah.
You're staying in an officer's mess. You can't believe how cheap the breakfast is, and it's included, and you can't believe how cheap the beer is. And I just love the camaraderie of it. And I was suddenly meeting all these really like-minded people. And we would go on camps. We went to Larbrook. I went to Lyon-Solent, to Daedalus. And you're seeing like RAF life. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is what I want to be part of. And by then, I'm now absolutely 100% certain that I want to be a pilot.
Sold on the idea.
Sold on the idea. But the small problem is that women weren't allowed to be pilots in the Air Force.
Not at all?
No, still not.
Wow.
So in my first year, they allowed women to become pilots.
Would you have taken the RAF as an option with a desk job?
No, I probably wouldn't.
Okay, I've just thrown it out there.
Well, wait a minute. I will come to that actually, because it's all sort of quite linked in really, because in my second year they changed the rules allowing women to become fast jet pilots, and I remember seeing Jo Salter's progression to doing this, so she went through that system. And I thought, oh my goodness, fantastic. So myself and another girl, actually, who lives literally down the road, I'm meeting for a coffee after, she and I applied at the same time, and we went to RAF Cranwell now to do Officer Aircrew and Selection Centre, the OASC, and I failed the aptitude test to be a pilot, and she passed them. And they said, you've passed in every other regard, leadership-wise, teamwork, absolutely everything. You've nailed, but you're not good enough to be a pilot. And I thought, okay, well,
what does that involve? What does that test involve?
Well, it was about 4 hours on a computer, and it's everything from... I was fine on all the mental agility, all the maths, all that side of things, because I'd done a maths A level, and I was quite switched on with maths. But it was the hand-to-eye coordination side of things, keeping little dots in the centre of boxes, and all sorts of things. But I didn't understand why I'd failed it, because by now I was actually really quite a good pilot. I was sort of winning, aerobatics competitions, and I was doing quite well with the flying. And so it didn't sort of translate that I couldn't pass this aptitude test. And I went back. I remember speaking to the boss of the University Air Squadron and saying I failed all the aptitude tests. And he said, "What? That doesn't make sense at all. Like, you're one of our best pilots."
Yeah.
And so he said, right, let's sort out you going again. And so I went a second time now to do the aptitude test, which is the last time you can ever do them. And I failed them again. And I thought, that's it. And at this point, they offered me a commission to become an air traffic controller.
Okay.
And although I didn't want to do that, I remember, I was sitting opposite this boss, and he said, "Here's your letter, Mandy." And I opened it and burst into tears. And he said, no, this is really good, because they want you for who you are. They want you for your officer qualities. Yeah. Now, I believe that there's a case to be made for getting you a branch change to pilot, but you've got to take the air traffic control
so it was sort of like...
to get the foot in the door.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to trust him. And at this point, he then made it his mission. I mean, I owe my entire career to this man, Squadron Leader Carl Bufton, because he went the extra mile. He got external examiners to come and fly with me, and they all graded me as above average. So now you've got a computer saying no, human saying yes. Yeah. And then he said, let's have a look at the testing. It doesn't seem right. And they investigated it, and they found out the majority of women taking the test were failing them, and the majority of men passed them. So there's now an unconscious bias that they're actually...
Was there
discovered.
A reason behind that?
And do you know what? This is what I often get asked in my speeches, and the answer is I don't know, but they did go on to change the tests.
Okay.
And because of that, because of this anomaly that they've now found, they've only just opened doors to women. They'd never been tested on women. And now why is it there's this huge disparity in the percentages of women passing compared to men? So obviously there's this bias within that system. And so in the end, I took that commission to be an air trafficker. I joined the Air Force as an air trafficker. And I remember signing, your, whatever it's the commissioning scroll type thing.
Yeah.
Thinking, I'm signing up now for sort of 16 years of service to be an air traffic controller when I don't want to do it. But I really did believe I was going to become a pilot.
That's good you kept the faith. Well, it's good the faith went both ways there, didn't it?
It did, really. I was interviewed by a guy called Gaz Top at Cosford Air Show for a BBC drama, or it was a BBC News segment. And he interviewed me and he said, so Mandy, are you joining the Air Force? I was like, and I was joining as an air trafficker at this point. And I said, yes, absolutely. I'm joining as a pilot. I'm going to make it. And he's like, what do you need? What skills do you need? I said, well, you've got to be incredibly competent. You've got to be quite aggressive, And I was still talking as if I was going to become a pilot. And I think it's that sort of level of belief.
Yeah.
And, that I did believe I would do it. So when I joined, I felt nervous signing this scroll to say I'm joining this commissioning thing. But in the back of my mind, I kept saying, well, I will become a pilot.
Yeah.
And that's how strong the belief was. And I got a letter about halfway through officer training saying, congratulations, we're giving you a branch change to pilot. And I've never been so relieved in my life.
I bet you were happy. I bet that was a great thing to open that.
Oh, my gosh, the huge relief. But I then found out, subsequently, I was being taken on as a test case. And they actually told me this. They said, we're taking you on as a test case to find out how far you'll get before you fail. Because they'd never taken on anyone who'd failed the aptitude
There's two
test.
things. See, my thinking on that, if someone said that to me, I'll show you. Because I remember when I went on selection, the odds were stacked against me from my battalion. He'll never do that. He'll never do that. And I thought, well, go on, you believe that, because I believe I'm going to do it. And it does give you a little bit of a thump, doesn't it? Although it's a little bit derogatory and it's a little bit.
It is. It's a double-edged sword, though. I think, because actually you're taking this girl that was now really I was quite confident, not in an arrogant way, but I'd been like head girl. I'd been, I don't know, head of the Rangers. I'd been, gone to university, been the head of the University Air Squadron. So I've sort of demonstrating leadership.
Yeah. And
then I joined the Air Force, and now they're saying, we're going to see how far you'll get before you fail. They didn't say, let's see how far you get because you've not done so well on the aptitude test. But they told me in black and white I would fail.
Do you think there was at the time, and I hope there isn't now, a sort of like male-dominated thing that almost wanted you to fail?
Probably. I'm probably without doubt there probably was. I mean, the Air Force at that time, I was in an initial intake of women that were taken on to be pilots. And, when I look back on my intake, there were quite a few pilots. So I think there was 4 of us, 4 girls that were taken on at that officer training. And 1 navigator as well, so 1 female nav who's done incredibly well. That's Soraya Marshall, who's now sort of the highest ranking female aircrew in the Air Force. So she was on my intake. And all of us did actually very, very well in our own fields on that as well, those girls that joined at that stage. But when you look at the bigger picture, we were still very, very few and far between. Yeah.
So did you know when they took you on as a pilot you were going to go fast jets?
No, you don't know that at all. So you sign up to become a pilot, and it depends on it's a meritocracy, it depends on your performance through training as to whether or not you would become that.
Is the fast jets like the one to have?
The pinnacle, yeah.
Is that the one
me it is. But
I do remember, I'll say that because a friend of mine's brother was a fast jet pilot up in Lossiemouth.
Yeah.
And he went back to flying Hercs because he went, I just don't want to be on my own anymore. Because he was always on a pager. He was always miles out of the way.
Yeah.
He was in a small crew and it didn't suit him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so that's very, very infrequent. I mean, I would almost think that's probably, I've only ever heard of that once or twice in my career, that people have actively chosen that. They might well choose it for family reasons later down the line.
Yeah.
But ultimately, when you join...
we done some time on the fast jets.
Yeah,
we did do some time then. They decided...
That was not for him.
This ain't for me.
So there was one girl that joined in a couple of courses behind me. She wanted to fly search and rescue. That's what she wanted to do. She desperately wanted to be a helicopter pilot. And she made that clear at elementary flying training, at Jeffs, during elementary training, that's what she wanted to do. And so they therefore streamed her as helicopters. Yeah. So for myself, when I joined, we went through elementary flying training and we would get streamed at the end of that. Some people were taken off to fly multi-engines, some to fly helicopters at that point, and anyone else that was still within the stream went off to fly to Tucano at basic flying training at RAF Linton-on-Ouse, which is now the Texan at RAF Valley. And Then at the end of the basic flying training at Tucanos, you then get streamed again. Some people were streamed to fly helicopters, some to fly multi-engines, and then the ones that did well went off to RAF Valley again. And then even at Valley, when we're now flying the Hawk, some people didn't make it. So one guy went to fly helicopters, one guy left, he was chopped, and he decided not to go
I'm picking
into
up a little theme here. Is this, if you fall off the wagon any time, it's helicopters for you. Is that true? Is that
it? No, because I don't want to be disparaging at all towards that, because some people actively choose to fly helicopters.
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely.
But it tends to be that the best people would fly fast jets because it's, you need the best situational awareness, you need decision making, you're going at, 500 miles an hour. So you do need that ability to be very sharp. And the capacity is the big word. So if you don't make the grade, but you've got a good set of hands, which would be good stick and rudder skills, then you'll probably make a really brilliant helicopter pilot.
Yeah. And they are,
Oh my God, they're phenomenal.
The ones that flew me are phenomenal pilots.
Absolutely phenomenal pilots. So I'm not saying that at all, but it would just be the way it would tend to work.
But it's also almost like a selection for yourselves. It's a race, isn't it? You are in that. You want to go there, don't you?
Yeah, I know. And if you want to be the best of the best, you're going to want to be.
There's a point where you must decide, right, I'm definitely that's where I want to be. That's
it
where I
is.
need to be.
It is. And then even within the fast jet community, so if you're the best of the best, you would fly Harriers. Then the next down would be Jaguars for me. And then the people were not good enough to do that. They didn't get single seat recommend. We would fly the Tornado, either the GR4 or the F3. And in some ways there, it's like, yeah, you're still not quite cutting the grade, And you think, my God, I'm flying a fast jet here. But there was still this second-rate citizen, even within the pecking order of the fast jet world. Yeah.
See, my favourite one, and I know nothing about fast jets really, other than, occasionally we could probably get our hands on one to do us some favours.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love the look of the Tornado. I thought that was the best looking one, without a doubt.
Well, I'm not biased at all, but I couldn't agree more. No, the Tornado, particularly the GR4.
It's got that.
Oh my God, it looks like what it's designed to do.
It looks like it's going to cause you some damage,
does
doesn't it?
what it says on the tin,
exactly,
carrying all the
stuff.
stuff.
They're not always loaded up, configured to fight, are they? They can do reconnaissance and all that sort of stuff,
Yep,
is that right?
So in my first tour, I was a reconnaissance pilot.
Yeah.
So I was based at RAF Marham, and our squadron was a recce squadron. However, when you go and deploy to the likes of Iraq, you won't just be doing reconnaissance. So you would be carrying all the weapons. Multi-role. You're going to be multi-role.
I'm going to take you back a little bit, because I want to come to the operational stuff. But what did it feel like the first time when you sort of went up those steps, the old canopies up?
For the Tornado
and you're
or the
settling
Hawk?
Down at the Tornado. No, forget about the Hawk. That's boring. I want to know about tornadoes. And you settle down at that Tornado and you're thinking...
Well, it's like an armchair, firstly. Firstly, compared to the Hawk's a really tiny cockpit.
Yeah.
You get into a Tornado, it's like an armchair. In the back, at one point, there was even a cigarette, an ashtray. You know what I mean? It's like, what? Which is just crazy. No, the Tornado is fantastic.
Yeah.
The massive difference when you get into a Tornado is I'm now going to be training in the aircraft that I'm going to go to war in. Someone is not trying to chop me anymore. I've got someone in the back seat who's a navigator who's here to work as a team with me.
Yeah.
So whereas up to then, the Hawk, it was almost like, how can we break her? That's the feeling of you going through flying training. It's like every day is an advanced driving test, twice a day for 10 months. And it's like every single flight, it's getting more and more stressful. You get into the Tornado and you've got a head-up display. I'm like, oh my God, I now know where I am all the time. I've got a moving map,
So people are now trying to help you with what you're doing,
and the kit's
as
trying to
opposed
help
to break
you.
you with what you're doing.
Yeah, rather than overload you and see, is she going to break down? The Tornado is now supplying you with all the things that you need for you to do a brilliant job.
So before you got into that Tornado, did the people who were trying to break you have to swallow their pride a little bit?
No,
and go,
not at all. No, because ultimately it's not quite like that. I mean, the instructors are piling the pressure on.
But not your instructors, but the person that originally said to you.
Oh, that letter.
Yeah, that letter.
Well, what was really interesting was every course I was on, the boss would call me in and say, I've had a really weird conversation. Someone from selections just contacted me and asked me how you're doing. And I've had to say, she's doing fine. Why? Oh, are you aware she was taken on as a test case? And I remember that there was a guy called the Bishop, bastard instructor, students hate on principle. That was his call sign. But Glenn Mason, he called me in and he said, I'm actually quite outraged. You're doing really well on the course. Almost like, why are they trying to, pull the rug from under us and say, you watch out for her because she didn't pass the aptitude tests. So that was always sitting in the back of my mind, by the way.
Yeah, I
and
bet it
that
was,
planted a seed of doubt, really, of sort of like what we would now call imposter syndrome. Because every time I would fail a flight, my default was, oh my gosh, it's because you failed those tests. You're not good enough. You're not
And
good
are they
enough.
going to hoik me out of it?
Are they
because
going to
of
hoik
that?
me out? Is there a spotlight on
yeah.
me even more than being the only woman on the course?
Yeah.
Is it even more, sort of in their faces, or in my face, should I say, that I'm actually not good enough? So there was quite a lot of pressure on. But going back to your question about the Tornado, I remember the smile on my face when I landed, and I wrote about it in my book, and I said, is this a fast jet thing, or is this just going to be permanently stuck there? Because the smile, it's the burners. That up to that point, we hadn't had burners, and when you light those burners, you get a kick of 2G of lateral acceleration. You are literally, it's like Thorpe Park going on stealth, It's this acceleration from nothing to literally.
And you sort of like, there must have been I can imagine if I was doing this, right? If I suddenly got this super thing in my hands and I'm going, right, okay, you must have been dying to hit that button or whatever it was you pushed forward to hit them thrusters.
Oh God, it's fantastic. Yeah, I mean the best one actually is when you can't really resist it. You're not meant to do it at low level, but if there was no one around and you'd see someone on a hill and you just like stick the burners in and they see these flames coming out the back, and you just go, give them a little wave as you go past, and it's just like, oh yeah, and you can see them waving back, going, oh my God.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant.
So you're living the dream now, aren't you? Really.
Yeah.
In terms of, you're in this thing. How long does your training continue within that airframe?
Once in the Tornado.
Yeah, once in the Tornado before they go, right, you're good, you're hot to trot, and we're going to get you outside.
So I was on the very first. So it used to be a tri-national operational conversion unit. And it was based down at Cottesmore, and then it moved up to Lossiemouth, and it became the first national one, i.e. we didn't have any Italians and we didn't have any Germans on it with us. It was just the Brits.
Just Brits, yeah.
And I was on number one course, which was brilliant. So it was starting, sort of like new buildings. It was great. We were up at Lossiemouth. I was on a course with people I'd been through the training system with, who were like my best mates. It was just fantastic. And there were 4 pilots on our course and 4 navigators, and we went through, and that course lasts 9 months up at Lossiemouth. So that's really intense, but enjoyable, because I don't know, the Tornado, it just felt like you've proved you can be a pilot now on the Hawk, and now it's like you can still be chopped, and one person was chopped actually.
Really?
There was a female pilot who was in the Navy actually. She hadn't made the single seat capability to fly Sea Harriers, and she'd been streamed to fly Tornadoes for one tour to build up her capability to allow her then to basically be sharp enough then to go onto the Sea Harrier, and she got chopped actually on the Tornado operational conversion unit. So you're still never quite out of the woods, but that conversion unit felt within my capability, and there was some really like sort of quite, oh my goodness. You might flail the odd trip here and there, but it never felt quite like Valley, that same level of pressure.
Okay, so you're in the team now. Within that cockpit, who's in charge? The pilot or the navigator, or is it sort of like a
No, it is a team. It really is a team. I mean, the pilot's the captain because that's the way it has to be.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how senior the navigator is. You could be flying with an air vice marshal in your back seat.
Yeah.
You're the captain as a flight lieutenant in the front.
Okay, so there's a real proper decision to be made. I don't know, pop yourself out or whatever.
But they haven't got a stick. So in the back of the Tornado, the navigator, now called a weapons systems operator, a WISO, they haven't got a control column. They can't fly the aeroplane.
Okay, so obviously.
So basically your job, and this is what I would describe as, and it really hit home to me, especially in the Gulf, was my job was the taxi driver. And it really levels you out. I can tell you this is because you realise that your guy in the back seat, and I say guy because it was predominantly that. There was one female that I flew with at one point. But they are doing all the work. You're getting them to the right place in the right sky. They're locating the target. They're using, forward-looking infrared. We're using our TERS, thermal imaging, our tiled pods, the thermal imaging airborne laser designator, all of those tools they've got in their command. All I actually have to do is to get them to the right point in the sky.
Right.
Which sounds like I'm belittling the pilot's job. I'm not, but I'm just basically building up to say you are a team. his trust is in me,
Yeah.
but my
Yeah, 'cause
trust is in him.
He's head down. He's not looking out the windows, is he?
Yeah.
He's head down going, right, I've got to do
He
this,
is
that, and the other.
sorting it out. And also, if you think about it as well, I'm dropping a weapon, so it's me that drops the weapon in the front seat, but on his say.
Right,
So
okay.
I've got to have 100% faith that I am going to be doing the right thing. I don't want to be dropping a weapon and risking civilian casualties.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I need to be 100% certain.
So the friendships you forge within these things must be proper intense.
Yeah, they are actually. And yeah, I mean, there were people I got on better with than others. Of course, there is. It's just that classic relationships, isn't it? There's going to be those chemistry between different people. But there was definitely some of the friendships that, I made, in my time of flying the Tornado that will stay with me forever.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. You've done your training, all right? You've done your training. You're now ready to deploy. You've got do you have a little passing out parade or something like that? And a few scoops, obviously.
Well, I think the best one actually is one. It's called selection. Oh God, what's it called? It's where you basically find out what you're going to fly.
Okay.
And this is at Valley actually, and they basically have this massive big wheel, and they've got all the different aircraft types on it. And they've got all these pints lined up and horrible spirits and horrible drinks, all sorts of stuff. And they spin the wheel. And you spin the wheel, and if it doesn't land on what you're flying, you've just got to neck a pint. And I'm on about 5 pints, having necked 5 pints before it finally landed on the GR4. And then they were like, I was like, please let it be this one. I can't consume any more alcohol. And then there was this massive ball pit, and yeah, you do all stupid things. And yeah, I just remember it was the milk. Pint of milk was the one that turned me.
Ooh,
that's never going to go well.
No, that's
never going to land well, is it?
That's not good, no.
No, it didn't land well. It was slightly, it was ejected quite soon afterwards. So no, lots of big celebrations at monumental points. You have like solo barrels, you have the selection. But I remember I was in Goose Bay when I found out I was flying on the operational conversion unit. So we deployed out to Goose Bay to do some training out there, and we found out where we were being posted. And I'd actually applied hilariously to all my friends for RAF Marham because I was seeing somebody and he was based down in the south of England, and the other 2 options were Bruggen or Larbrook, and I thought I can't go to Germany. I mean, how's this relationship ever going to work if I'm in Germany and he's in England? And he was in the Navy as well, so he couldn't travel. So I thought I'll apply for Marham, but Marham was reconnaissance, and I was absolutely rubbish at reconnaissance. I remember they stuck a picture once up of a Nimrod, and they said, "Theirs or ours, Mandy?" And I was like, "Oh, it's quite it looks quite sharp for a multi-engine aircraft. I'd say it's probably theirs." So you would shoot that down. I was like, "Yeah, I probably would." Well, like, it's ours. I was like, "Okay, I've got some work to do."
Yeah, there's a bit of
bit of work
some issues there.
So everyone was laughing their heads off when I got recce. But I put the work in again and passed all my recce stuff. But the recce side of it is really quite intense. And, you're flying over targets at 500 knots and you land and they say, "So what was there?" And you go, It was a self-supporting steel lattice structure with 14 aerials that were pointing in this direction. You've got to literally take snapshots.
Not your Dickie Bow Wood in Brecon, is it?
No,
it's
no. Oh, I know it well.
You know Dickie Bow Wood. I've run round Dickie Bow Wood. You've flown over it a few times.
Oh yeah, starting with a bit of forward air controlling with it. That's right. Yeah. Some special men like yourselves, probably. Yeah.
So, what was your first? Let's go into operations now.
Yeah.
What was the first time you get the knock on the door and they go, right, you need to get your kit back because we're off?
So we at the time it was the defending the no-fly zone over southern Iraq. So build up to Gulf War II. Gulf War I has happened, and we are seeing this absolute progression of them building up forces. And so there was this ever presence in Kuwait where we would basically do shows of force and defend the no-fly zone. So you're checking that they're basically not relaunching aircraft, they're not building as much as you want them to.
Yeah.
And so we would have, I think it was 6 aircraft based in Kuwait, of which 4 would fly at any one time for serviceability issues. And so the squadrons would rotate round and we would do 2.5 to 3 months at a time.
And do you always go up as a sortie? Is it a sortie?
Sortie.
You always go up as a sortie?
It's a formation, yeah. So a sortie is what you would do, and it would always be 4 aircraft over the border at any one time. And yeah, you would be given your tasking. And I remember I knew when I was going to be going, but it was really soon. I'd arrived on the squadron in November, and I knew that our squadron was due to deploy in February. And I've got to become what's called combat ready on the squadron. So you've done all your training, you're now on the squadron, now you've got to do another 15 trips to become attack combat ready. But the problem was our squadron was deploying out to Red Flag on an exercise. And that was going to be the first, whole of January, pretty much. And I didn't have enough hours to take part in Red Flag. So they said, okay, Mandy, well, you go out as a planning crew to Red Flag. But it meant I didn't fly for 3 weeks in Red Flag, which is in Las Vegas, and it's amazing. So that was a really a tough gig for me, not flying planning crew in Las Vegas. Let's just say I hit it hard on the partying front. It was great fun.
I can imagine, yeah.
And I learned loads about mission planning, about working collaborative, with the Americans.
Yeah.
We had people from Turkey, France, have all these nations coming together as a coalition, and you'd plan these enormous missions.
Makes things real as well. Doesn't it?
My
When you
gosh.
start seeing all this stuff coming together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you go, well, you actually have got that. Oh, wow. I thought, yeah.
But also, I just think, you know what, there's only so much training you can do in the UK.
Yeah.
If you're flying in a war zone and it's 45 degrees, but you're flying in the UK and it's like 6.
Hacking around the north of Scotland.
It's not the same. And so you need to practice what you're actually going to be doing.
Yeah.
And especially in these huge, big coalition forces as well. So that was really, really good. And I remember mentioning Soraya Marshall again at this point, but she had gone through, because she was a navigator, her training was much quicker than ours. And she was what's called the Blue Forces Commander out when I was just arrived on my squadron. She's now on her second tour and is doing her Qualified Weapons Instructors course, or QNI, Qualified Nav Instructors course. And so she'd been given the job of being the whole of Blue Force. So you've got Red Force, which is the baddies, and then Blue Force Commander. And she's the same age as me, gone through training with me, and she's now doing this. And I'm thinking, oh my God, she's so far ahead of me. But it was brilliant to watch her just taking on this mission. I mean, we were very few women. We're talking a smattering. There probably were only about 3 or 4 women to about 200 men out there, and watching her just rule this. And I thought, that is brilliant. She was a huge inspiration to me at that time as well, which was fantastic. There were a few funny stories that I mentioned in my book, but I won't go into details with those now, of nightclubs in Las Vegas. But ultimately, that was a really, really great example of good leadership for me from a friend as well. And so when I got back from Red Flag, I've now got this really intense period to get me combat ready. I had literally about 3 weeks to do all the flights. And so the pressure was like, you've got to perform. And so that was really quite intense, and managed to pass, managed to head out straight away to the Gulf. And I was given a navigator that I didn't necessarily really click with as well. I think it was because nobody else particularly wanted to fly with him. They almost choose to fly with their friends, and I'm the new girl in the squadron. So I'm given the guy that nobody else particularly wanted to fly with. And it was quite challenging, I'll be honest. I found it really hard.
What was there a reason? Was he a bit clunky? Just a
little bit clunky, perhaps. Not necessarily the sharpest navigator.
Okay.
And he was a slightly strange character as well. So a lot of people just didn't necessarily want to fly with him. Given to me, fine. But then also what actually started to happen that first time in the Gulf, I was actually bullied as well by one of the key characters, who was going through a hard time himself, but he decided to take it out on me out there. And
what you say bullying? What was he giving you, the bone jobs?
Every single briefing we would sit there, and you're about to go into a war zone. You know, you're already like sort of a rabbit in the spotlight. And every single briefing, every question would come to me. And there's 3 other junior pilots there. Not one question would go to them. So I would be on this high state of like fight or flight, fear for every briefing. Every mission we're planning, he's just constantly asking me questions. And everyone would go, well, that's just training, isn't it? Okay, until we now get back to the barrack block, and we're in this horrible porter cabin, marginal air conditioning, the sort of thing. It's
I thrive in those sorts of places.
You're going, this is luxury. I don't know what you're talking about. You're like, it's not a tent. It's not a hole in the ground. So everyone goes, oh, were you not in hotels? We certainly were not. No, we're in these porter cabins with one toilet, one shower, no aircon. And every time I'd walk outside, if he was sitting outside with a group of guys, they'd all fall silent every time.
Really?
And I'd sit down and no one would speak. And I'd just get up and walk off, and then I could hear them talking again. And it became more and more and more isolating, to the point when I didn't go and join any of them at all. I would just sit in my room. I had about 14 Jilly Cooper type books, so I'd just sit and read all those by myself. But it got to the point where I remember writing a bluey home to my now husband and just saying, if this is what it's like, I don't want to be part of it. This is not what I thought.
Form. That is really
it was
poor form.
awful. And actually, I wished I'd handled it sooner. I didn't, because I was I was the only woman out there. There was like 200 men and me. It's really, really isolating.
Did it get dealt with?
It did only on because basically my husband pushed me to have a word with him, and we had a
I'm
word.
going to go and have a word with him.
Yeah, you're going to find him out now. But basically my husband said you've got to take him on. So we ended up practicing all these conversations. I'd like to say role playing, but that sounds like we went through some dodgy stuff. But basically we practiced all these conversations, and then I took him on in the bar actually, and he was with his wife at the bar. And I remember going and saying, "Are you aware you made my life a living hell for the whole time in the Gulf?" And he went, "What? What are you talking about?" And his wife even said, "What are you talking about?" And basically what it transpired was she had just given birth to her second baby. Yeah. And she was suffering from postnatal depression. She was angry that her husband had now left with her with a toddler and a 3-week-old baby. He was angry that he wasn't there. He's getting it, in the ear from home. And then he's got a woman there. And it's like, right, I can take out all of my anger from the situation on her. And he did. And he said, I've thought about what you said, and actually I'm really sorry. And I'm going to...
But at least he acknowledged it, I suppose.
He acknowledged
it would never make it right, would it?
It would never make it right, but at least he reflected. And then we ended up with quite a good working relationship. But what's really amazing was I went to a reunion a couple of years ago, a Tornado aircrew reunion, and I saw a few of the old guys from the squadron, and they said he's at it again. He's back to his old bullying ways.
Really?
So what's interesting was it wasn't just me. He is a bully, and actually...
Well, I've got to say to you, some of those guys that were sat down with him, perhaps one of them should have stuck up and kind of tell you what, mate.
And that would be that classic where we might say nowadays bystander. Don't be the bystander. If you see bullying, you call it out. But what I would say though, Phil, is in my entire service career, so 16 and a half years as a full-time, 8 years a reservist, that was my only incident in all of that time where I ever experienced anything that I would class as...
All right, I'm going to counter it by saying one's too many for me, but we've been there. We've been there, all right?
Yeah.
Let's move on from the bullying and let's talk about the operations that you took part in.
So...
your first mission. Can you remember your first mission?
Oh, my God, I do remember my first mission because I couldn't believe it. So one of the guys who was actually a really good friend of mine, he called us in and he said, okay, and up to now, just to put it in perspective, we were mainly doing 95% was reconnaissance.
Okay.
5% might be what's called a response option or a bombing mission.
Yeah.
And we walk in and I've done 2 little training sorties just to get used to flying in the heat out there. And then he called us in and he said, okay, top secret now, tonight's mission is going to be, or today's mission is going to be a bombing mission. And I was like, and he said, your eyes literally went like massive. And he said, it was like the, and he said, I'll never forget it, Mandy. It was really funny because I just went, and anyway, we were then had all the mission planning. It was really full on. And we went off on this mission and going over, when you go over that border for the very first time, you do something called fence checks where you sort of, you're going into lights off mode, but your arming switches are all on in case someone shoots at you so that you can put your flares or your countermeasures out really quickly. So you're going through all of these.
Are you not worried you'd knock one?
Knock one?
One of your just by
knock
accident,
a switch.
Sort of like dink.
No, because there's what's called the live master arming switch. So that goes on, and then there's another 2 switches. That you would have to do. So you can't just knock it back. Oh, damn! Sorry, that was a bit.
Bit of turbulence, and someone's getting a bomb on their head.
Yeah, no, there's a couple of switches that you have to do, and also the main switch on your control column. There's a flap on the top of it, and you will only remove that flap when you are on the actual target run.
Yeah, cool.
And anyway, we were on the actual target run and we're 30 seconds to go. And it's all lined up perfectly. And as we're going down the target run, there's a guy called Andy in my back seat at this point. And I said, 30 seconds. He went, continue. I'm thinking normally they're looking on all the sensors now. And our target was a huge big gun. And it was in some berm and covered around. And as we're going down, he's like, I said, 10 seconds, continue. And then he just went, switch is safe. And my switches were all live. And I was like, literally like 3, 2. And he's like, switch is safe, not located. And he hadn't been able to break out the actual target. And what was really good for me, though, at that point, Phil, was it felt like a failed mission. Okay. We came back and I was like, oh, God, was it my fault? Was I rubbish? Was I not lined up? He said, no, Ma, you did nothing wrong. Some days will be like that. And what was fascinating, in training, we'd done a live bombing mission over the sea from Aberporth. And we have weapons, and they want you to actually go through a proper release of what it feels like to release a £1,000 weapon from your aircraft. And I'd done it with a very junior navigator just before we'd gone. And he ended up, I say he, I was all lined up and I released the weapon on his say. And when we actually looked at the video, we released it on a crest of a wave. So we thought it was the raft, we thought it was the target, but it wasn't. But that lesson taught me, don't drop. If there is any doubt, there should be no doubt. You never, ever drop a live weapon because you feel under pressure to do it.
You say £1,000, and I've seen £1,000 go off. Like,
it's going to make a big hole in the ground.
It is a lump, isn't it?
It's a huge lump, and this is not insignificant. And it was the best learning. It went into the sea, and the weapons instructor said, "What the hell were you two doing?" And we felt horrific that we dropped a weapon not on the target, and it was a huge mistake. But it was the best learning that I could have ever had, because when I now get to the Gulf, if we don't drop the weapon because we can't positively identify the target, that is fine. Yeah. I do not want to be dropping a weapon and it be someone's house instead.
Yeah.
Exactly that. So it's that absolute clarity. So that was my first mission. Success, maybe not, but it was a bombing mission.
There's a positive to be added.
There was always a positive.
Which is what you've pulled out there.
Yeah, always a positive. But, the predominance of the missions that we were on over there were reconnaissance. So we had different sensors and we would fly. It's a medium level war for us. So we're up at 20,000 feet, which is very different from like the likes of Afghanistan, where people would imagine a war zone of people going in at low level. Yeah. We were not. We were up at medium level, which there is a level of sort of being slightly detached from what you're doing. So I'm still in my office. Yeah. It's a very hot place. The pressure is enormous. I tell you, the biggest pressure was actually making sure that the radio, we had secure radios, and you had to put in this 20 different codes to make sure it went secure. Yeah. And the pressure of getting that right. If you can imagine, someone says to you, right, you're on the tube, and you've got a mobile phone and you're going to put in 20 different phone numbers before we get to the next station. And your check-in is in, 3 minutes? and you're like, oh my God. And you're literally, and it's right down here on the right-hand side, like by my right-hand hip. So you're sort of like twisted trying to do this. You're putting in all these figures. And there's this magic, da-da, and it just means you've gone secure. And I was like, oh, thank God that's in. Because if you get one digit wrong, that's it.
And you can't talk to no one.
You can't talk to no one. So you're not going on the mission.
No, you're rogue, aren't you? You've got to go back, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was my biggest relief was when that happened.
So you said you felt at this 20 grand war, you felt a little bit detached.
Yeah.
When did it actually hit home to you, this is proper, this is real? There must have been a moment when you were flying when all of a sudden you went, I don't know, something went by and you thought, wow, this is like...
Two sorties that really stick in my mind. One was when President Bush Jr. had just taken over control. Okay. And... we were given a mission. It was top secret. This was not to go out. There was no comms, comms down type thing. Yeah. And we planned the mission, and it was really far north. So up to this point, we've been limited by what's called the 33rd parallel. So it's basically a level of latitude that runs straight through the middle of Iraq. This was way north of that. This was just south of Baghdad. So it was going to be about 2.5 hours of flying just to get up to it. And the target was a fibre optics building, and it was at the stage when all of our intelligence was coming from telecommunications that were above the ground. Okay. And suddenly we've been given this target, because if this fibre optics, their entire network got joined up, we're going to lose all our intelligence. Yeah. So we need to keep comms above the ground.
Yeah. So this is strategic level stuff.
This is strategic level stuff. War-changing stuff. This is war-changing stuff. And then we were given this target, and we knew it was a top priority number one target. And I went off, and I remember we were heading north, and it was pitch black. We've got our night vision goggles on. They're really heavy bits of kit, and you can have them up or down. And my nav said, "Are your goggles up or down, Mandy?" And I said, "They're up." And he said, "Yeah, I'd leave them that way if I were you." Instantly, like a toddler being told what to do, I click them down. And I'm now looking through these goggles, and we are seeing tracer rounds. It was like 4th of July, bonfire night. We're seeing surface-to-air missiles, what looked like them being fired indiscriminately. They didn't look like they were tracking onto anything. No. But we saw loads of tracer coming up, loads of AAA, the anti-aircraft artillery coming up. And we're flying straight through that corridor. And I'm with a wingman. Now, my job on this mission was to be the cooperative attack. So I was going to be lasing the target, and the bomb is going to be dropped in GPS mode. But once it's gone down, then it picks up a laser energy. as I'm sure you're very well aware. And that laser energy is going to be highlighted to the area of the building that you want it to go in. So the GPS coordinates are going to take it to the general area. Your laser energy is going to give it its precise location, which was a door. And then there was a fuse setting that would allow that weapon to detonate underground in the area. Anyway, so we get up to the north. We're on the target run. It's like clinically precision. There's no chat. There's no banter.
Did you put your things back up, or did you?
No, I left my gogs down the whole time. I thought I just want to see what's going on here. So I've now got my gogs down, and we do the full attack. And it was literally just it was precise. It was absolute successful mission as far as we were concerned. And when we landed, the Americans said, "Oh," and I can't remember, of course, so I'm going to say Spartan. You Spartan formation? We said, "Yeah," and they said, "Oh my gosh, we've got some incredible footage of your target run. Would you like to come and see it?" And we all sort of went, okay. So why wouldn't we want to see it in sort of bigger picture? And what had happened was there was an unmanned aerial vehicle called Predator, and it was airborne above the target. And we were coming in below that, and you can actually see that the target is highlighted. And a man comes out the building, and he's having a cup of tea and a cigarette. And you can see this because it's all on the thermal imaging, so it's been highlighted white. And he throws his cup of tea on the floor, and this big patch of whites, and you see where he stubs his cigarette. He opens the door as our weapon goes into the other side of the building. And literally, you can imagine there's 8 of us in this room watching this footage, and we all go, and then the door on the other side of the building, and then it explodes, by the way. So the bomb goes in, bomb explodes, door opens, bloke comes out and runs. He gets in a car and he literally runs across this car park, and he obviously just has his car keys on him. Thank God he had his car keys on him. He gets in his car and he just drives straight through the fence line. But what was hilarious was the fence was attached, and then we see this fence like ping, 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 and he's dragging a fence all the way through the desert in a straight line through this. And we all went, oh, because you're a pilot, you're flying, you're not bloodthirsty. You're not doing a job because you want to kill people.
That imagery's just put it at a personal level.
It absolutely does, which of course for you would be normalised, sort of that level. For us, when I say, and I'm building up that picture saying, you're at 20,000 feet, you're feeling detached.
You're not going in his pockets afterwards to find out who he was, are you? Do you know what I mean? So,
and it made it very, very real. So that was the first mission that really hit home to me, just what you were doing, and really, well, not just how dangerous it was, but also that there are lives. Of course, you're aware there are lives that are going to be lost.
That drills home as well the importance of, if you get that wrong,
absolutely,
you can colossally get it wrong.
But we could see our target was absolutely it literally went in the door that we were highlighting.
I mean, there is quite a bit of footage you can get online now, and it is that. It does
precise.
Literally go through windows and doors, doesn't it? I mean, it gets driven right through the door or down the chimney or wherever it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy.
So,
isn't it?
I mean, that was the first mission. And then another mission was coming right to the end of my first tour. And I was leading a mission and very much, which I think is really interesting when anyone from the civilian world listens and talks to me about this. So they can't really understand why junior pilots lead. It's like, surely just senior people lead all the time. But that's not the way it is. It's that you're taught to lead from a really early stage, aren't you? So, you would be like leading, missions or exercises because they want to push you. Yeah. And that's how you grow as a leader.
And you're hot off the press.
You're hot off the press, exactly. And I always say leadership is not a title on a door.
No.
It's actions, and how are you going to learn those unless you're actually put in that position? So I was leading a 4-ship of aircraft, first time, right at the edge of my capability. Let's just be really honest on that. And it was just a show of force. We had all our targets, but it was a night mission. So we were just basically displaying we are ever present. Yeah. And we're flying around this sortie, and in the south of the country, right along the Saudi border, we'd never had any action whatsoever. It's like tumbleweed. I mean, there's just nothing out there at all. I mean, it looks like there's one road on the map, but that's like literally a track. And as I swept up the last target and started to put the aircraft towards base, my nav had his goggles down and he just went, "Oh my God, Mandy, brake right." And literally a surface-to-air missile, he saw the flash of a missile being launched at us in a heat-seeking mode, which is really unusual. So we have something called a radar homing and warning receiver. And basically it picks up the energy of any acquisition missile on the ground. So you would get this little spike coming up saying there's a surface-to-air missile, an SA-6 looking at
Is
you.
it like the films where you get like a flashing light and it's all
Yeah,
going,
a little bit like that. Yeah, I mean, basically, you get this spike and it'll say SA-6,
Yeah.
and my nav would say, he's monitoring it really closely, say, Mandy, SA-6 right 2 o'clock, and at this point I would normally jink left and we'd go around it. And you can see when it goes from like surveillance mode into acquisition mode, and then you can see when the missile launches, now you get a different tag because it's now the missile's radar that's looking at you, not the ground radar.
Yeah, so it's
that's
gone
looking.
from
It's
a
gone
push
from-
has become a shove. In fact,
push has become the shove.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you can see all of this normally, but on this occasion, we were getting none of that on our radar homing and warning receiver. And so he literally just happened to be looking at it and saw the flash, and he went, oh my God, he went, Mandy, brake right. And I broke the aircraft over to about 120 degrees and I pulled really hard towards the ground.
Yeah.
At the exact moment, and this is a manoeuvre you practice all the time, I chill my engines, the flares get put out.
Because it's the heat it's coming
It's a
after, isn't it?
heat-seeking missile, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
locked onto the heat. Now, there's a really low chance this will work. There's a low PK, low probability of kill. But if it does work, it's getting to you undetected. So it's not a normal way for them to fire a missile at all. Anyway, it was locked onto us, but as the flares left and I chilled my engine, suddenly it's picking up the heat of the flares, and the flares are burning at a hotter intensity
so
than our
it
engines.
distracts, yeah.
So hence the decoy, and it went and exploded about 2 miles away. And I may have uttered a couple of small descriptive words in the colour brown. And basically we radioed through, but there were loads of aircraft airborne that night. And the way it worked as well out there was that once an aggressive act was made towards any of the coalition forces, you were then given the opportunity to carry out a response option, i.e. a bombing mission.
Yeah.
And we had half the aircraft had weapons on them, half didn't. So I was number 1 and number 3 were the weapons carriers. And so I had a weapon on board, as did my number 3. And what actually happened was we were running out of fuel. We were like 2.5 hours into what was meant to be a 3-hour mission. So we thought, right. So we went into Saudi Arabia to pick up a tanker, an airborne tanker.
Yeah.
They're on a combat air patrol, going round and round on a racetrack pattern. And we got down there, and it wasn't our British one. Ours had broken, possibly due to defence cuts. Did I just say that? Yeah. Anyway, it's been replaced by an American KC-135. I had never tanked from one of these before, not cleared to do it. It's like firing a new weapon when you've never done it before.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking,
don't even know if the magazine's going to fit.
I don't know what I'm doing. And it's got a really different system. And I said to my number 2, who happened to be my boss, sir, I'm not qualified. And he said, well, just have a go. What can go wrong? I can tell you what can go wrong. So anyway, I had 2 attempts and I wasn't successful. And I said to my nav, I'm stopping. And he just said, press on. And I thought, well, that's weird. Why is he saying press on? And in this moment, I had real clarity because I thought we had less fuel than everyone else. However, if I did carry on, this is now going to prevent the rest of my team from having the opportunity to tank because I'm dominating the tanker. So I thought, no, this is not right. So I overruled him, moved across on the wing, let my boss and my number 3 refuel. They were successful. Myself and the other guy went back to base, and number 2 and 3 went back into Iraq and located the tanker, and located the target, and they destroyed it. And I landed back at base, and I remember it was like about 4 a.m, just getting the slight bit of twilight of the sun rising up. And I just remember thinking, you're a failure. I literally felt like that, Phil. I just thought, no, you didn't pass those tests. You shouldn't be here. You're rubbish. And I'm in this like dialogue of, you can't even do the job you're meant to do. And then this hand appears on my shoulder, and it was my nav, and he said, "Mans, that was a really, really good call."
It was a call. As I say,
it's a call.
Whenever you override your boss, it's a ballsy call anyway, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Straight away from that, you know what I mean? But you did the right thing. You did the right thing. But otherwise, you'd have denied those other 2 jets the opportunity.
And we wouldn't have completed the mission.
You'd have all gone back. You wouldn't have got.
And it's not about you.
Moreover, the geezer that shot at you got his
comeuppance,
didn't he?
I know.
So there you go.
So it was a really interesting one, but also my nav then alluded to the fact that his last job had been a trials officer at Boscombe Down. And this was going to be the first day that this weapon that he'd been part of the development team of was ever going to be even dropped it in anger. And he just really wanted to be the first person to drop it. Hence him being a bit more emotionally involved and saying, press on.
Yeah.
And he said, but thank God you were thinking a bit more rationally than me. And I thought, God, that's really interesting. But what it highlighted to me as well, Phil, on that moment was, we're always taught, Special Forces particularly, I don't care if you're the most junior, you've got a set of eyes, you've got a voice, use it, challenge, because, do it in the right way, of course, but if you think that there's a plan that's being put forward and you don't agree with
David Sterling's ethos, classless, not rankless society. You need the rank system there.
Yeah.
You know, shit rolls downhill, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean to say that Private Bacon neck that's laid in the ditch isn't going to be the one that sees the thing that changes the war. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And that's
absolutely.
a perfect example of it right there.
It really is. And we'd always been encouraged to do that, you know, especially in debriefs. When we go into a debrief, it's like they say, leave your rank at the door. You know, I want this to be flat.
Yeah.
You might have, I don't know, head of the Air Force flying. But when we get into that debrief, we want accountability, honesty, integrity. We want, and there's a lovely saying I heard, actually the F3s use it, and they say, show us your tapes. And it's your tapes are your, because, well, they were flying Typhoons at the time she was talking about. And it's basically, you could be accountable only to yourself, because you could say, yeah, I hit the target. Show us your tapes. Let's see proof of the pudding. So it's actually be really honest and go in and say, and what it does is it breeds this really open culture whereby you say, I did hit the target, but I think I hit the left-hand side of the building and I was 1 second late. You look at the tapes, guess what? That's where your weapon goes, left-hand side of the building. They say, good. You're becoming really good at analysing your own behaviour, your own performance in the exact moment when it's critical. And in that debrief, you know, I ran the debrief because I was still the leader. And, you know, as I was doing this debrief, I realised I'd made the right decisions. And I realised that I'd earned my stripes that night.
Yeah.
I was always fearful of letting my team down. I was never fearful of being shot down, but I was fearful of letting my team down. And I realised I had no need to be fearful of that anymore. I'd earned my stripes on that front. But also the leadership. And the leadership side of it was phenomenal because my boss had sat there really quietly. But he led by example, by letting me continue to lead the mission.
Yeah.
And I think you just grow so much when you're given that opportunity to grow. And it's always sort of things like that when people say to me, yeah, well, what are the lessons that you can take away from the military that take into civilian world? Those sorts of lessons, you know, people have a voice, invaluable, empowerment of the team. Yeah. All of those things are so important.
Yeah. So you did eventually leave.
I did. Yep.
What spurred that?
So I was on a tour when we decided that we wanted to have kids, and we'd been trying for about a year, no joy. And when I now understand a little bit more about what happens with your body, if you're flying fast jets, you're probably releasing a hell of a lot of cortisol, the stress drug, stress hormone, all the time. Yeah. So it's probably going to be a very low chance you'll actually manage to conceive. Anyway, I did conceive, got pregnant, didn't know I was pregnant, carried on flying, and then miscarried. You're getting hit in the stomach constantly by a G suit. It's not really surprising that your body's not going to be.
Yeah.
So once that had happened, I finally, I didn't know. I basically worked out I was pregnant and I told the boss, and they said, well, you're grounded, you know, you can't be. Then I miscarried, and they said, okay, well, we've already got this tour set up for you. Do you want to still go into this ground tour? And it was fine with going into a ground tour when you're pregnant because you think you will have to. But going into a ground tour when you're not pregnant, now you're choosing to leave the front line and you're thinking, God, I'm putting blues on. I'm going to be in tights for the next 3 years in some job in high command, strike command in High Wycombe. And it was not appealing. But I'd taken this job because I thought, well, I do want to have kids, and actually that environment's not going to be right for me to get pregnant. Anyway, I got pregnant straight away. I did a ground tour, very productive ground tour, I may say, 2 children in very quick succession.
Banging them out.
And at the end of that ground tour, I was talking to my posting officer, and I basically said, look, what are my options? He said, right, you're straight back to the front line. It was now deploying to Afghanistan. I was like, okay. I'm breastfeeding a 4-month-old. Not quite sure how that's going to work on the deploying to Afghanistan. And my husband's, you know, now an airline pilot and is away all the time. And my family lived in Manchester and I lived down south. I was like, are there any other options? He said, well, there's Valley. You can go to RAF Valley and become an instructor. I said, okay, but my husband flies out of Gatwick, so I'm going up as a single mum. And, of course, with 2 very little children. And, you know, when you're an instructor, you can actually end up having to... you don't land back at, you might have to actually divert to different aircraft, airfields and things. So I thought, oh God, this is all getting quite tricky. And then I found a job at Boscombe Down, which is near Salisbury. It was half an hour from home, and it had to be a Tornado pilot that did the job. And it was looking after all the aircraft document set for Tornado GR4, F3, and the Tucano and the Hawk. And I was like, they said, it has to be a pilot that does it. Basically, you're getting all of the aircraft document sets come in from the likes of British Aerospace or whoever the supplier of the aircraft is, and you make it into pilot speak. It looked on paper to be the dullest job you can ever imagine. Yeah. But it was 9 to 5 and it was Monday to Friday. And I thought, I've got a 4-month-old and a 17-month-old at home.
Yeah.
I need to make the right call here.
And you've got to keep the dough coming through the door as well, haven't you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I wasn't quite ready to leave the Air. Well, I still had time left in the Air Force. I
Yeah.
could have left at this point, but I didn't
What rank
want
were you
to.
now?
I was only a flight lieutenant still.
Okay.
So basically, my posting officer said, if you take that job at Boss Commands, you will never, ever be promoted. It doesn't care, I don't care how good you are, you won't ever be promoted. I'm now coming into the time when I would be looking at getting promoted. So I've done sort of 2 tours now. So, you know, I'm about 30. And so they said, if you take it, you'll never, it's a dead end job. And I said, but what choice do I have? Why is it so regimented that, you know, actually...
Yeah, it would seem that, you know, you should be able to dictate with your performance whether you get promoted or not.
But it doesn't work like that. And it was basically as if they'd said, okay, well, let's get women in. We haven't really thought through the process. I mean, I never had any female flying kit, you know, there's no female toilets. No, I mean, none of that bothered me. But it's almost like you've allowed women to join. Now you've got to work out your processes to allow the political aspect of what you have allowed to actually happen. And so anyway, I took this job and I actually did it until I left the Air Force. And it was the best job because it was perfect. It was, as I say, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And there was some flying hours to be had. And in the end, I ended up flying the Hawk, the Falcon. I flew in the Tornado occasionally, Tucano. And I was doing air experience flying as well with all the University Air Squadrons and Air Cadets as well. And so I was actually getting about 20 hours of flying a month, which was way more than the front line, who are now limited to 12 hours a month.
Wow.
So, and often on 6 to 8 different aircraft types.
Yeah.
So it was bloody brilliant. And all my friends would go, how's that awful job at handling? So I'll go, yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, you don't
want
want
to
it.
do it.
You don't
wouldn't want it. No one would want to do this. Do not take this job. But actually it was perfect for me because it meant I could build a life. And in some ways, I felt I was taking a job. I was giving up my career, but I was keeping a job.
Yeah.
And there was this big... But the other thing that it enabled me to do was create this segue between fast jet frontline flying and leaving the Air Force. And so now I'm building up a life outside of the Air Force.
Yeah, so you're getting a bit of sort of like
that
rehabilitation, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and that really helped, really. So I never went through that falling off the edge of a cliff, leaving the Air Force.
Yeah.
But when I did leave the Air Force then, at the end of my 16 years, which is what I'd signed up for, actually not one person, not one interview was held with me that said, would you consider staying?
Really?
Which I think in that stage, when you're only one of 5 women that have flown the Tornado, it cost $3.7 million to train me. If you'd have actually said to me, okay, now your children are 4 and 5, they're now at school, you know, now you've got a little bit more flexibility to say, okay, actually, I could go back to the front line. Not one question.
Or you could become an instructor.
I could become an instructor at Valley, all of those things.
This is what breaks me about decisions like that. The skills that they've lost within you that's actually now gone out the gate.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't replace that in 5 minutes.
And this is what does worry me. I'll be really honest.
Yeah.
It worries me at the moment about, you know, actually retaining our talent within the forces.
Gosh,
I just
they
think
need to
we're
retain
losing
it.
people in droves. You know, and that's becoming one of the issues.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of experience as well.
I know all the experience that goes with that as well. And I
you
think,
don't get that. I can train you, I can put you in the classroom.
Yeah.
But until you've actually gone and done it and you can come back with those decisions you're saying about, you know, making the, you know, the refueling, all that sort of stuff.
All of those things.
That is invaluable to anybody, surely.
It is. So, yeah, I mean, I then left, and that was actually 12 years ago when I left now.
So what did you get? What did you get up to since you've been out?
It's been an absolute roller coaster. I've loved it. And I do think that you take the right opportunities at the right times for you. So I retrained to be an airline pilot because that's what every pilot does when they leave. And I didn't really ever want to fly commercially, I'll be honest, but I did it because everyone else does it.
What did you fly? Did you fly one of them?
Well, no, I never actually. So I got qualified on the 737, got all my licenses the whole way through, literally held my commercial license. And then I was flying with this young cadet, and it was a life-changing moment for me because I'd just done my licenses, flying with this girl. And I used to go back at the weekends as a volunteer reservist. So I was still flying, and I was flying sort of twice a week, flying young cadets. And I flew this girl, and she was the most talented pilot I've ever flown with in a raw state. She was about 14 or 15. And at the end of it, when we landed, she'd given me very little throughout the trip. You know, she was not from a private school. She was state educated, and she was doing it because she wanted to do it. You know, there's a big difference between like the CCF cadets I see and the Air Cadets. The Air Cadets are the ones that I want to fly with, you know.
Yeah.
and had flown with her. And Orlando said, you're unbelievable. And she was like, oh, I bet you say it to everyone. I was like, I've never said it to anyone. You're unbelievable. You are a fantastic pilot. And she said, you're joking. I said, no. Honestly, you've got raw skills that I've never seen before in anybody I've ever flown with over my 20 years of flying. And she said, oh my God, this is all I've ever wanted to do. I was so scared I was going to fail. I decided not to show you I was interested. And this story that came flooding out of her was this feeling of like wanting something, but being so scared of failure, you back away from it so much that she gave me nothing. And I said, it would have been so easy for me just to write her off as yet another youngster that's, got nothing going. And but suddenly this story comes out, and when I saw her and I said, how are you doing at school? And she said, oh, I hate school. I said, school enables this. And all you need sometimes is that actual joining of the dots to go, I mean, if you're going to school and you're just being told, you've got to learn this, you've got to learn about biology, you've got to learn about history, you're thinking, why? I'm not interested in it. Yeah. But you give me an endpoint as to why I'm doing it.
Yeah. You need maths because of A, B, and C. You need to be able to articulate.
Absolutely.
You need to be able to problem solve. You need to be able to.
She suddenly clicked, and she went, "Oh my gosh!" I saw her a year later, and she came up to me in the corridor, and she said, "Oh, Mum, I'm so pleased you're here. I wanted to tell you, I got all my exams, and I want to be a pilot just like you." And this had hit at a similar time to me starting to do this work with Inspiring the Future, this charity where I was finding out about this role modelling and how few, how important it is. So I've got her saying this to me. I've got this job I don't really want to go into that I'm almost thinking, how is that going to work as well with 2 airline pilots and 2 children? It's tricky dynamics. And so I thought maybe I'll set up my own business. And so I did. And over the last 12 years, it's gone from me speaking, I don't know, once or twice a month to fully booked as a speaker, hundreds of thousands of school children engaged all over the world in all 5 continents.
Wow.
In lockdown, I did 3 continents in one day, speaking to school children. I've spoken to so many Air Cadets, so many University Air Squadrons. I'm now an ambassador for the Girl Guides. I'm a trustee with the RAF Charitable Trust. Okay. So that's a brilliant one for myself. I was a trustee actually at the Victory Services Club in London, which is a fantastic club. All ranks, all services, and we do wonderful respite and, recovery and R&R days as well for families, which is part of our charitable aim. And it's right near Marble Arch. And so I was involved in that charity for 5 years. And then the Charitable Trust got in touch with me and asked me, would I become a trustee? And it really sits within my core values because it's using all of our proceeds and our profits that we get out of the Royal International Air Tattoo at Fairford.
Yeah.
And we use all of those that to set up the charity. And the charity is about trying to reach 500,000 young people in STEM, aviation, engineering, all of those skill sets to say these are phenomenal areas to go into.
Yeah.
And so we're working hand in hand with
so
incredible charities.
That you give these young people something to aspire to.
Absolutely.
And you get their heads out of their phones.
Yeah.
And you give them something that they, people that have been there, seen there and done it, that can talk to them and say, this is... Because otherwise,
brilliant.
You're exactly right. All they do is they sit there and they go, what do I need that for?
I know.
Where am I going to go with that?
Yeah.
So what?
But I mean, like the engineering side, I love that. You're going in now to primary schools and they're sort of saying, those kids that love playing with Lego, which was actually like me, I was a massive Lego fan, they're probably going to have a slightly engineering brain, because they're choosing those sorts of ones of actually creating something. They're going to be more STEM related. You're going to have the arty ones who are going to be into their, their arts, their music. But let's capture those young people, and especially young girls, who there's some shocking things where you look at, there was a fantastic video that was made actually called Redraw the Balance by Inspiring the Future, which was done actually in 2016, where they asked 60 school children to draw pictures of a fast jet pilot, a surgeon and a firefighter. And 54 of the 61 drawings were all of men. And they said, okay, this is shocking. Let's do something about it. They repeated that in Denmark and Canada literally 3 years ago. And there was exactly the same stats. They all these 6 to 8 year olds all drew men. And they get the name Bob and the name blah and firefighter Phil, whatever it is. Yeah. And it was really interesting that this is how set in stone our aspirations are of our young people at the age of 6 years old, that they're already assuming what are gender-related roles.
Schools don't seem to help that sometimes either, do they? Because the curriculums, they can only just get the curriculum out to them.
I know.
Do you know what I mean? So, I've had this conversation with someone before. If you ask a 2-year-old what he wants to be, I want to be a rocket man. By the time he's 6 years old in school, he's like, I'll probably be a driver. Do you know what I mean?
know.
And he's got the school beats him down, doesn't
But
it?
you
Do you know
see
what I mean? I
it
hate that.
changing all
I
the
hate that.
time. I mean, for a real classic example would be, schools contact me all the time saying, can I come in? Now, I don't charge for state schools, so I obviously can't just give up work because it's what I'm doing to get paid.
Yeah. No.
So if I'm going up to Edinburgh and a state school has contacted me, I've got this massive list and I'll say, OK, I'm doing a speech for a company. They're paying my expenses. I can come and do a speech for you in the morning. The amount of times the school goes back to me and says, oh, I'm sorry, we can't fit that into the curriculum. And
Do you know what? It's almost like they're not interested in what you've got to say. They've got their curriculum.
I know. And that to me
I'm-
is so frustrating. I just think you're having this opportunity for former fast jet pilot, to come in and speak to your students.
It's not just that. It's not just a fast jet pilot. You are someone who's been there, done it, seen it.
Yeah.
You've achieved so much in a space where perhaps you shouldn't have achieved anything in some people's eyes. You can't be it if you can't see it, can you? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I just think
do you
it's
know what I'm saying? It breaks me.
It's so short-sighted. And I just think, why? If I was the head teacher, I would go, clear the bloody diary that day and get the entire school in
see assembly.
for that assembly for 1 hour.
We're not going to talk about this. We got this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Ridiculous.
I just don't understand it. And I do find that really frustrating, that sort of lack
You're
of
denying
flexibility.
children an opportunity as well, I think.
It is.
By not allowing people in to talk to them. I've just become an ambassador for the military preparation colleges.
Right.
Which is I'm hoping to do just that. Visit schools and say to kids, look, I do this. I've done that. I've done this. I came from that. I was interested in that. And I ended up here. And that's what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean?
It's so powerful as well when it's not, when you can say, I grew up in Manchester. I grew up in I was on free school meals. That was me.
Yeah, I was, children's own background.
It's a meritocracy.
All that sort of stuff. Yeah.
It's up to you to choose your direction, and your life is in your hands. And you can choose to be a victim of your circumstances or whatever it is. But there's only so long you can look back and go, oh, it's because I.
No. You've got to get ownership. You've got to grip it. And
absolutely.
by being exposed to people that have done a little bit of that, can just flick it over in a kid. Do you know what I mean? Just flick it over and go, I'll tell you what, I need a bit of ownership here.
Yeah.
Do you know
if
what I mean?
say I can literally reach one child in 1,000 that I'm speaking to, do you know me? Well, that's a success as far as I'm concerned. And in fact, I was asked, actually, I was speaking at this really big, high-powered conference, and they said to me, Mandy, give us something from the last 6 months that's been like the thing that you're most proud of. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, question. And I rattled my brain and I thought, I know what it is. And I went to speak to a school in Southampton in special measures. And there was this teenage girl at the front with dyed hair, tattoos. She looked like she was a rebel, a rebel without a cause. She was 16-ish. And I did my speech and I saw her go from like constantly wanting to get her phone out to sort of engaging in it. And by the end of it, she was like staring at me, absolutely immersed in the session. And afterwards, the head teacher contacted me and she said, I'm going to have to quote you word for word. Don't worry, I know I'm on the radio, so I won't swear. But
No, we're fine with it.
Oh, are we? So basically, this head teacher said, I'm going to give you, she said, this girl is the most intelligent girl in our school. She's absolutely rebellious and she's brilliant at physics. She's so into her STEM, but all of her friends are going to the college to do hairdressing. And so she's refusing to go to sixth form college to do maths, physics and, the more STEM related stuff. And anyway, so she's basically said she's doing the hairdressing course. Anyway, she's come to me after your talk and she said, F it. If she can effing do it, then so can I. Sign me up for it. And do you know what?
That's exactly what it's all about.
It literally put shivers down my spine because I thought, crikey, I don't care if I don't reach any other child. What am I most proud of in this last 6 months? Well, it's that you could have had an impact on one person and got them to change their direction, and that is really, really powerful stuff.
It is powerful.
Yeah.
No, listen, Mandy, I really do hope you become a friend of the show and the station. Oh, it's been tremendous having you on there. I could keep this chat going for hours and hours and hours.
We could bore everyone.
And I suspect you're going to have to come on again, all right? On a personal note, I'd love to pick your brains about some of the other stuff, maybe another time, like the development and all that sort of thing, because that's right in my sweet spot as well. But for now, I'm going to shake your hand. Thank you very much for coming on, and let's hope we see you again.
Thanks so much, Phil. Been
nice
an absolute
one.
pleasure.
Right.
Cheers.
Superb.
Thanks.